Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And hey, special show announcement here. I'm going to even take myself off the screen because we got a very special guest here. You know him, you love him. Athlon Sports senior editor, Stephen Lassan. Again,
Mike, it is going great. I appreciate all the help you've given me to get to the spot, and also thanks to my dad and my brother. They came down here and hooked me up with all these wonderful shells for all these helmets. I got some SEC teams to fill in. We're still working on it, but I think it's a big upgrade. New season, the SEC is bigger and better than ever, right? So we had to match it by getting the appropriate display, right?
next. And unfortunately for you guys, it's not going to be just Steven. It's going to be me on the show too. So I'm back here as usual. But I just wanted everybody to get that in their image. Just the hard work Steven's putting in behind the scenes to make this show even better. So we really do appreciate it, Steven.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate all the help you've given me, and I'm just excited that we kind of got a background now that matches your great background, and we kind of look like we got a good show going here at SEC After Dark. I know things will change here in a few days as we get ready for Week 1, but like I said, the SEC is bigger and better than ever, and so we got to make the surroundings look like it, right?
Hey, apparently I have no sound. You can hear me though, right?
I can hear you crystal clear, Mike.
Uh-oh. Oh, wait, I don't know what's going on here. They're saying they can't hear me. They're saying they can't hear me. No sound, no sound. Not good. Um, hmm. Broadcast. Boom. How about now? Can you hear? Man, that whole intro here, I don't think anybody could hear a damn thing I just said.
What you said was great, Mike.
All right. Well, they can hear me now. They can see me now. I apologize again. I was just complimenting Steven on his incredible background. You'll have, if you catch the audio version, I swear we're recording a backup here. You'll get the audio version. You'll get everything I just said nice about Steven. But again, sorry about that, Steven. We really do need a producer on this show. Last episode Shane couldn't figure how to hook up his mic. Apparently, I don't know how to do it either. But we are still in camp mode here. It's not the season yet. You know what?
Yeah, 100%, Mike. I mean, the good thing is this is week 0, so we have a week to work out all the problems before we get to week 1, and the season actually gets here, and we have to actually work out all the kinks and stuff. So, good news, Mike. It's still the preseason for us. We still have time.
Right. Okay. Well, now that they can actually hear me, I do have to. I'm contractually obligated, Stephen, to let the audience know we're brought to you by MyBookie Online Sportsbook. If you haven't already, great way to help the show. Head on over to mybookie.ag, sign up for a free account, and get some bonuses by putting in that promo code THATSEC. We got college football right around the corner. We got you covered over at MyBookie Online Sportsbook. Stephen and I, well, mostly Steven, because I don't know anything about these week 0 teams, but Steven's going to give you some insight into that in just a minute. We're rocking and rolling with the YouTube memberships. If you haven't already, I think we're just one membership away from adding a new icon. YouTube limits to how many icons we could put up based on how many subscribers or members, cousins, as we like to call, join up. So we're just one away. We're over 50 already. So cannot thank you enough for each and every one of you that have become a member to this page. It really, really, really is helping us out. And hell, more members, maybe we can hire a producer so you guys know that you can always hear me. I mean, how's that sound?
I think Cousin Shane is always an icon, right? Who needs badges? He is an icon, right? Is he down at Cracker Barrel tonight, by the way, or is he?
He is definitely down at Cracker Barrel, Stephen. There's no doubt about it. He really is down at dinner. I don't know if he's at Cracker Barrel, but he goes there about 6 times a week.
Man, I'm doing good if I can get there once a month. But
All right, Steven. So again, hey, fabulous show topic that, again, this is all Steven right here. Bold predictions for every single SEC team. Steven's got one for all 16. I came with about the 10 hottest takes that I could come up with. But before we get into that, should we talk some week 0, Steven? Just give your thoughts. Anything at all that you got for these games? Because, again, we are literally just hours away from college football season kicking off.
How about we start with the last game of the day, and that is Delaware State at Hawaii. Delaware State has having some travel issues. They are supposed to fly out today. They are not going to make their flight, but they are going to make it to Hawaii. So if you are worried about Delaware State and Hawaii on Saturday night, don't worry. It's going to go on just fine. But that's likely to be the most one-sided game of the first week 0 here. Florida State and Georgia Tech, I think by far the most competitive of the week 0 games, Mike. Obviously, future SEC member Florida State. You also have Florida State and Georgia Tech. Those two teams will play SEC teams later this year, of course, with Georgia and Florida. But by far, the most competitive of the games. I was a little surprised that Florida State's probably like around a 12.5 point favorite early on. I think it's been knocked down, I think, around 11.5. This Georgia Tech team, former SEC old friend Haynes King, did a nice job last season for Georgia Tech. There's also some other old SEC members if you're looking for something to watch there, because Marvin Jones Jr. plays for Florida State. You got Roydell Williams, the former Alabama running back. But by far, like I said, most competitive game of the day. Like, I was a little surprised that Florida State was such a heavy favorite. I think that one's probably likely to be a little bit closer. And if you look outside of that, you got SMU, Nevada. SMU 20+ point favorite for good reason. Rhett Lashley, old SEC friend, leading SMU, and Montana State, a double-digit favorite as an FCS team over New Mexico. So some interesting games there. But like I said, by far, if you're looking for something, it's Florida State and Georgia Tech in Ireland.
Isn't the New Mexico coach, isn't it the former Virginia, former BYU coach Bronco Mendenhall?
That is Bronco Mendenhall led New Mexico his first game. They have had a lot of roster turnover, which is one of the reasons why they're a double-digit dog to Montana State. A very good FCS team, I should say, Montana State.
Right, and you mentioned Rhett Lashley. What would you think about this, Stephen? Because I can't recall where I heard it. I'd like to give him a shout out if I could actually remember it. But I heard someone predict Rhett Lashley to be the next Arkansas coach if Sam Pittman is not retained. Could you see a hire like that, or and maybe even if it's not specifically Arkansas, could you see a scenario where Rhett Lashley works his way to be a SEC head coach?
I can. I think you look at just what SMU has done under his watch. I mean, they're going into the ACC after winning the American Athletic Conference Championship last year, and could have easily been in the New Year's Six over Liberty. So he's done a really nice job. And I think one of the things that he's done a good job with is in the new era of the college football with the transfer portal and NIL, SMU has done a good job of adapting and molding to that. And so I think they're going to move pretty seamlessly through the ACC. So I would expect that his coaching stock doesn't get lower as SMU is moving up the ladder from the American to the ACC. I think he's going to be a coach that you'll see on the radar for the SEC, whether that's Arkansas, maybe it's somewhere else in the SEC. But I think if you start thinking ahead a little bit to what coaches could be on the radar for like an Arkansas opening, like a Jeff Traylor at UTSA, a Rhett Lashley, maybe an Alex Golish at South Florida too. They get some really good, hypothetically, if the job was to come open, there'd be some really quality offensive candidates and also some other really successful G5 candidates.
How about Cousin Dakota here? He says Barry Odom next year, possibly at Arkansas. I've heard that rumor before. Again, it's impossible to predict because who knows. But who do you think is a better candidate? Would you think Rhett Lashley or Barry Odom?
It's a good question. I would probably take Rhett Lashley. I think obviously Barry Odom's got a tour through the SEC already at Missouri. I think one thing that would be appealing to me about Rhett Lashley is his ability to kind of piece together those high-powered offenses that we saw so far at SMU, but also sort of like I said, sort of navigating that new era of college football with the portal and NIL, also just next door in the state of Texas at SMU. So I think obviously he's got some ties to the SEC as well. So I would take probably Lashley over Odom if I was Arkansas and it came open this year.
Mm-hmm. And Cousin Jordan says, hey, I got a bold prediction for you. I'm having a beer with Cousin Shane in Columbia on November 9th when Oklahoma comes to town. Was that one on your list, Stephen? Is that one of your bold takes there?
It is not. I was actually trying to decide, is Cousin Shane going to do the drum on November 9th, or is
He is
that's still
politicking
okay?
hardcore to hit. It's called Big. I think it's called Big Mo down there or something like that. But yeah, that is a dream of Cousin Shane right there.
Is there a Cracker Barrel next door too? get the belly real full and head over.
Right. If Cousin Shane is that committed to going to Columbia, Missouri, I assume there must be a Cracker Barrel within walking distance.
Right. Yeah. That makes for a good pregame and postgame meal, right? You get 2 trips in one. Head over
Right.
before you get in the stadium and after.
All right, Stephen, let's get into it. Let's not tease the folks any longer here with our bold predictions. Again, Stephen's got bold predictions for all 16 SEC teams. I got about 10 here. Would you like to start, or would you like me to start? How do you want to do it, Stephen?
Mike, I can start. I'll throw out. I'll pick a team, and
Okay.
how about we start with Alabama? So
Perfect.
I'll throw out a few that I have, Mike, and I'll throw these out, Mike, and then I'll let you kind of critique my bold predictions on how bold they actually are. Let's go to the receiving stats for Alabama. I am going to take a bold prediction that true freshman Ryan Williams leads the team in receiving yards. I will also take no 1,000-yard rusher, but Justice Haynes and Jam Miller are both breakout stars this year for Alabama. So basically they both get maybe 700, 800 yards. They both have really good seasons.
Right.
Jalen Milroe, he leads the SEC in total offense, and he's also a Heisman finalist this year.
Ooh,
So,
I like those.
And I will throw, Mike, one more out there at you. Alabama will lose to either Tennessee or Oklahoma, but they will still make the college football playoff.
Well, I like your prediction of losing to Tennessee. I'll tell you that. But no, I could see a lot of those coming happen. Yeah, you really went deep on these Alabama bold predictions. I'm trying to think which one's my favorite. I mean, I think Milroe, being a Heisman contender type. I don't know how bold. I mean, again, I don't know, new system. But yeah, I think that the boldest one there, probably the Ryan Williams. Now, again, based on all things from camp, it's completely valid. So I'm not questioning it, but he would have to be a insanely good player to come in here year one. I think he's only 17 years old and lead Alabama in receiving. So, man, that'd be pretty wild to see, wouldn't it?
It's definitely bold. I thought one of my sort of reasoning for it is, if you sort of look at the kind of opportunity there for Alabama, and one receiver has consistently flashed this preseason, and I think it's kind of been Ryan Williams. But also you have Jeremy Bernard, who transferred in from Washington, who I think is going to be a big factor in that as well. But, after losing Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Bond, Amari Niblack, and Malik Benson, and there's opportunity there for somebody to emerge. So I'm just kind of banking on talent here. And also I think if you're Kalen DeBoer, what better way to sort of kind of show, the next wave of recruits for 2025, 2026, come play and look what we can do in this offense, look what kind of numbers we can put up. So that's kind of my thinking. It might be a little bit bold, but I just like the opportunity and talent there for Ryan Williams.
Right. And I apologize, Stephen. I just got breaking news here. You're going to want to hear this, as is the audience. I suggest they sit down.
Uh-oh.
Because this is pretty big. This is a big one. I just got a DM from a source here. Cousin Shane is at Cracker Barrel watching the show right now. I'm trying to figure out what it is that he's eating here. It looks like, what do you think that is? I don't know what that is. No, that may not be Cracker Barrel. It looks like chips and salsa. I assume that was Cracker Barrel, but I don't think it is now that I look at the decor a little bit.
He's cheating on Cracker Barrel?
Until they sign the dotted line. Shane refuses to eat there again.
No free shouts, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, how about this one, Stephen? Now, this could be a little bit hotter because yours were pretty positive outside of losing possibly to Tennessee, losing to Oklahoma, you said, right?
Yeah.
And still making the college football playoff, which that's fair. But how about this take? and they ain't gonna like it. Not all my bold takes are ones fans like, but that's the way I like them, Stephen. How about this? Ole Miss has a better defense than Alabama, and I'm calling that the revenge of Pete Golding.
Mike, I like that one. Can I mention my Ole Miss take right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Since you bring up defense, I think the acquisition of Walter Nolan pays off for Ole Miss. I know, like, big news flash, right?
Right.
They were 9th in the SEC last year against the run. I think they are going to be much improved on defense. Walter Nolan makes a run at All-America honors. And yes, I was going to say, I think they're like a top 6 defense in the SEC this year.
And the problem is they're already pissed off in the comments here. Appreciate you, cousin Carl. He just became a member. Let's see. Thank you so much, cousin Carl. But here's the issue. It's not that Ole Miss is going to be like lockdown elite. It's that Alabama's going to take a big step back on defense without Nick Saban. People got to remember. I mean, it's a totally reworked secondary. I mean, people are putting some of their true freshmen, as day one starters. So of course they're just throwing them on these All-American lists. I'm not saying Alabama's going to be awful. I think they're going to make the college football playoff. But it's exactly what Steven just said. They may have a dynamic true freshman receiver. They may have a Heisman finalist at quarterback. They may have multiple breakout candidates at running back. And the offensive line should be top 5 in the SEC, which makes it probably top 10 in the country. So they may be unstoppable on offense, Steven, but their defense, I think, is going to take a real step back.
I agree with that. I think, first of all, when I think about Alabama's defense this year, it does go to that secondary, Mike. And I think in time, like some of those freshman corners that they have, combined with Deshaun Jones, the Wake Forest transfer, I think they're going to be just fine eventually this season. I think they may start slow, but they'll be, I think it's going to take some time for that group to settle in. One other thing that kind of stands out to me is, like, compare the two schedules. Alabama's defense, I mean, Mike, you and I have joked about this. Like, we look at the schedule, South Florida, Western Kentucky early on. It's going to at least test the defense. You go up to Wisconsin on September 14th, old friend Phil Longo, the Dairy Raid offense up there for Wisconsin. I'm not quite sold that it's going to take off this year. But, I mean, these are good, at least tests early on. Then you get Georgia. Then you got to play Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You look at Ole Miss. I mean, Mike, you and I have talked about the schedule this offseason. Middle Tennessee's this is the first year under Derek Mason. Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. That's a pretty favorable non-conference draw. LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia. I mean, I think Ole Miss's schedule, I think, in terms of like the offenses that they face, is probably more favorable too. If you want to make this like a kind of an extra level to this prediction, I think Ole Miss has a little bit favorable path to ranking higher in like total defense and stuff.
Yeah, no doubt, because the first month's a joke. And even when they get into SEC play, Stephen, again, Kentucky, how good will they be on offense? That's a huge question. How good will South Carolina be, their second SEC opponent? Heck, how good will LSU be with new quarterback, new receivers? I don't get why these fans think they're going to be dominant on the ground game. They haven't been able to run the football in 2 seasons. And hell, what if I think Oklahoma's going to be good, but hell, I don't know, with a brand new offensive line, brand new quarterback, and on and on and on. I mean, and then I'm looking at Florida, Mississippi. I mean, they may face, I mean, this is unlikely, but they may only face one elite offense, and that would be Georgia.
Yeah, I totally agree, Mike. I think it's a really favorable draw. I think putting aside the schedule too, I just think personnel-wise, and this is something, Nick Saban brought this up at SEC Media Days, just like Ole Miss, I think, they have like the dudes that other teams have. I mean, Walter Nolan, like I said, I think he's going to be an All-America caliber player for Ole Miss this year, but they now have like the bodies and the talent in the trenches that some of these other teams have had. And I think there's just the returning talent plus the transfers, to me, and the second year of Pete Golding equals a much improved defense for the Rebels.
Right. All right. How about some bold predictions for Arkansas, Stephen? I got a good one, but let's hear yours first.
I'm going to start with the tight end position. So I think Caden Prescorn is the best tight end in the SEC. Last year, only one.
Uh-oh, did we lose you? Stephen told me too, he's hardwired his internet so that the signal would be better. and it does not appear to be better. Unless is he frozen for you guys too, or just me? Let's see. Yeah, I think we lost Steven. He was on a roll there. Gone. But I'll give you mine. I'll give you my hot take here, bold take, whatever you want to call it, for them Arkansas Razorbacks. And here it is. Hey, I know everybody's out on Sam Pittman. I'm buying into the hype. I don't care. They could throw 80 interceptions in a scrimmage. Everybody in the comments said, well, hell, that was just one from Taylor Green, and it was 7 from the third stringer walk on it. I mean, I don't know if I buy all that bullshit. But regardless, I think Arkansas is going to make a bowl game this year. I really do. So that's my bold take for Arkansas Razorbacks. Sam Pittman is telling anybody that'll listen that the Razorbacks are a much better team. And how do they get there? I mean, you got to beat Oklahoma State. I think the first 3, absolutely, you have to win. You win Mississippi State. You win Louisiana Tech. Right there, we're just one away from making the postseason. So I'm not sitting here saying Arkansas is going to go to the college football playoff or anything crazy like that, but I do think realistically that Arkansas can make the postseason with all the buzz I'm hearing. Year 2 with that defensive step. They took such a step forward with those defensive coaches coming on last year. Now, the wheels kind of fell off, but I truly do think that was because the offense couldn't muster anything last season. There's been division in the locker room. I've even heard, the offense and defense kind of hated each other there in Fayetteville. We're out with that. We got us a quarterback we believe in, Taylor Green. We got Bobby Petrino. Arkansas is going to beat her team or two. I don't know who it is. Could be Tennessee. Could be Ole Miss. Could be Texas. It could be Missouri. It's probably not going to be Missouri. But any of those other ones. Again, I'll throw up the schedule here. It would be an upset technically to beat Oklahoma State. But just about all the rest, they're going to be favored against Mississippi State, I think. The first 2 home games, non-conference, they're going to crush those teams. They're going to beat Louisiana Tech. You really just got to find another game in there somewhere to make the postseason. I really do think if you can knock off Oklahoma State week 2. So give me Arkansas making a bowl game. That's my bold take for them Razorbacks, and still waiting for old Steven. It's like this show. If you can't hear me, you can't see Steven. Shane's eating dinner. See if we can get Steven back on here. Maybe his power went out too. Just like Shane claimed to the other day. All right, but how about this bold take? I think you guys are going to like this one. They're not all negative. I swear, most of these are positive. I went with the one negative there just to fire up the Alabama fans. But I think as many as 6 SEC teams are going to win 10 games this year. And that may sound crazy, but we've already done it to where we have shown, this has been discussed on many different shows, that as many as 9 SEC teams can win 10 games. And we're just talking regular season. We're not talking postseason, SEC championship. As many as 9 can go 10-2. Now, that is highly unrealistic, but I think as many as 6 really can. And here's the 6. I've got this in tiers. I got it in tier 1. I think these teams certainly, not certain, but it's almost a lock for these teams, these 3 teams, to win 10 games this year. Georgia, Missouri, and Ole Miss. I think those 3 are going 10-2 or better. And then the next 3 are going to come from this group of 6. Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, or Texas A&M. So half of those last 6, I think they're going to go 10-2, and we're going to get to 6 10-2 teams in the SEC. And how, it's going to be madness to see, do they all make the college football playoff? You go 10-2 in this league, you probably deserve to go to the college football playoff, but I mean, I would love to see it. I don't think you should be left out if you go 10-2. I really don't. But how will the committee handle it? I don't know. that remains to be seen. Where it's all guesswork. Do we actually see this college football playoff committee and how they vote for these 12 teams? And as many people have pointed out, it's really they're just voting for 11 because there's going to be a stupid G5 team gets in there. There's going to be conference champions that may not deserve it from other leagues get in as well. I can hear Steven, but I can't see Steven. So I'll wait till we can see him again here. But, there we go.
Mike,
Steven, we've upgraded everything. Then we lost you.
I guess the bold takes were just too hot, Mike. The internet went out.
So let me recap you real quick here. This is what I said. I had 2 bold takes. Arkansas makes a bowl game. That's one of them. And really, I just, because my logic is Pine Bluff they beat, UAB they beat, Mississippi State they beat, Louisiana Tech they beat. They're going to have to get that Oklahoma State win in this scenario and just win one other game. I really do think that can happen. What would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mike, I'm not as down on, I think Arkansas probably, as probably the sort of the college football collective is, like their bowl chances. I mean, it is, the over-under is 4.5, so they are going to have to pick off an upset somewhere. But, Mike, I think to kind of go back to one of my bold predictions, I do think the home schedule, the fact that they get LSU, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, and the timing of some of those games works out for Arkansas to where they could pick off an upset or two. So, no, I don't think that's crazy at all.
Okay, well, I love to hear that. Then my other bold take, Steven. This one may be too bold for you, but I got 6 SEC teams that are going to win 10 games, and I put it in tiers. I think Georgia, Missouri, and Ole Miss, I'm fairly certain if things go right, they're all going to win 10 or more. You could see the logic there, right?
Georgia, Ole Miss,
and Missouri.
Okay, yep.
And then this next group is tier 2. I got 6 teams, and I'm saying half of them go 10-2. I got Alabama, I got LSU, I got Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, and Texas A&M. I think 3 of those 6 go 10-2.
I'll buy that.
Yeah,
I'll buy that.
What,
yeah.
And what would happen? Would they all make the playoff? I have to feel like 1 or 2 of them would probably. I hope not, but I think probably 1 or 2 they'd have to leave out.
Yeah, I think if just the kind of the simple, almost like math on the at-large spots says to me like 4 or 5 is probably like the sweet spot for the SEC to as far as playoff teams. I am curious about, and I don't like. I think Missouri at 10-2 is very worthy of being in the playoff. I know I'm sort of like thinking down the road here, but let's just say they do go 10-2, Mike. I mean, and their losses are to A&M and Alabama. Their best win would be Oklahoma, who I think is a top 25 team.
Right.
But I think that schedule at 10-2, that's kind of iffy. That's right there on the border of like where you'd feel really comfortable if you're a Missouri fan. So I'd probably defer to like 5 SEC teams getting in the playoff, but I certainly think that when you kind of break the numbers down, it makes sense about like 5 or 6 of these teams get the double digits.
Right. Yeah. God. Man, I can only imagine the fan base that gets left out at 10-2. The just the shenanigans that could ensue there. You know what?
If the committee thought that Florida State was angry last year, you wait till you get to the wrath of some of these SEC fan bases, right?
Hey, so I didn't mean to cut you off there, but you froze when you were doing the Arkansas, your bold predictions. Can you repeat those Arkansas bold predictions for us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think first of all, I think we'll start with the easiest one. I think Landon Jackson gets to double-digit sacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think his production from year 1 to year 2 in Fayetteville saw the production take off. I think he's kind of in an NFL type season, looking ahead to the next level. I think he's going to have a monster year. Luke Haas, I think he could have maybe the best numbers of any tight end in the SEC. I think Caden Prescorn is the best. But you look last year, only one tight end in the SEC went over 500 yards receiving yards, and that was Brock Bowers. it would not surprise me at all if Luke Haas goes over that and his numbers are just as good as Caden Prescorn. And that's not a knock on Caden Prescorn. Just keep in mind that you got Juice Wells, you got Trey Harris, you got other guys there too. I think Haas could have a really nice season. So I'm kind of thinking that if there's maybe a sleeper for like first team All SEC, I'll go with Luke Haas. Also on the schedule thing, Mike, I think the fact that Arkansas gets those 4 tough games at home, LSU, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, I'll take them to pick off one of those teams that helps them sort of get to 6. But I do think if Arkansas makes a coaching change, it would not surprise me if it's after October 5th, that week that they have off before playing LSU.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting fired, so here's another one, Steven. Here's another one of my bold takes. And they ain't going to like it, Steven. They ain't going to like it. But the loser of South Carolina at Kentucky, week 2, the losing coach will be fired. Not immediately, but by the end of the season. Whether that's Mark Stoops, longest tenured coach in the SEC, or Shane Beamer. And cousin Shane's already been on this train, but I get the logic now. I mean, I just think this game is so paramount, and it's a crossroad games, and everybody in here can say, that's damn crazy. These guys are on cool seats. We love our coach, yada, yada, yada. Well, you go 4-8, you don't love them anymore, and you're going to upgrade. And that's the way it works in the SEC. But so give me the loser of South Carolina at Kentucky. I don't think that coach will still be the coach by the end of the season.
Man, that's bold. I no wonder my internet went out. It was prepared for the scorching take by Mike over there. I was gonna go with, if there's a surprise opening, and this kind of goes along your lines there. I think if there's a surprise opening in the SEC, I think it's Mark Stoops at Kentucky stepping down. I think the fact that he is just so like the winningest coach in Kentucky history, what he's done for this program, he can kind of pick his kind of exit here. And I think about Bob Stoops retiring early. And I think about just that he's kind of at the point of his coaching career where he may have hit the ceiling at Kentucky. And I think is evident maybe by the fact he had the A&M job for like 5 minutes and then what happened there. But I could see Mark Stoops not being there next year. I think the thing on South Carolina that I'm kind of hesitant on is maybe I should just give my bold prediction on South Carolina. That'll solve it.
Okay.
I was going to say they start slow, but they do the Shane Beamer thing where they find a way to get to 6-6 and it cools the hot seat talk for another year. Like it wouldn't surprise me if Shane Beamer's said his seat almost goes from like a temperature of like 3 maybe to like a 6 during the year, and then he's on the hot seat next season. So I don't know, Mike. That might be a little too bold for me, but I do think Mark Stoops, if there's a surprise opening, it's at Kentucky this year.
How about this comment from Daubers here? He says, boldest take, someone will miss Gary Dales. We may miss the CBS jingle, but that's about the only thing we're going to miss from SEC on CBS. I think it's going to be awesome when it's triple header by ESPN. I really do.
Oh yeah. I think ESPN, I guess they haven't really, the theme song isn't really the theme song that they showed right now. It's going to come up during the first, I guess, game with Miami and Florida, but I mean, the production value on the ESPN games is always high quality. So yeah, I think it'll be a good year for the SEC on ESPN, especially when you can just turn it to like one channel and watch those all day. You're set.
Right. Well, and speaking of South Carolina, I did have one other bold take. Again, I don't want to be all negative here, but give me South Carolina, Stephen, as the most improved defense in the SEC. So I'm not sitting here telling you they're going to be the best, but they got a ton coming back. I think I got all that geared up here. Yeah. 72% returning production on the defensive side of the football. That's number 3 in the league. I really like what they have at safety. I like some of the linebackers. They've got a really underrated defensive line. Give me South Carolina as the most improved defense in the conference. Would you buy that?
Yeah, we're speaking the same language, Mike, because that's what I had too. I think South Carolina, they allowed 26.3 points a game last year. I think they will be much better on that side of the ball. in 2024. We saw some of that down the stretch when they switched to the 3-3-5, but I like what they did in the portal. It feels like their defense is deeper. I even think someone like Debo Williams, probably a little bit underrated nationally. Throw in Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders. Like, they got the makings of a pretty good group here. So I think the defense for South Carolina will be much better. And Mike, I will also throw out this prediction. I think they will have, and the bar is pretty low, they will have the most improved rushing attack in the SEC. They were 14th last year. From 2014 to 2003, if you take out the 2020 season since it was a short one, they have not finished higher than 9th in the conference in rushing offense. That is South Carolina. Rocket Sanders, Lenora Sellers, Oscar Attaway, give me a much improved South Carolina rushing attack. Sorry, I know we probably went out of order there.
Right.
But
well, and Juju McDowell, too.
Yeah.
Throw him into the mix. So, yeah, a lot of weapons there. I like that pick. That's pretty stunning when you put it like that.
And, I mean, officially, Lenora Sellers named the starting quarterback today, too. So.
And I apologize, Stephen. What years did you say that was for South Carolina with the weak rushing?
Yeah, if you take out the 2020 season, since it was shortened season,
Right.
Every year from 2014 to 2023, South Carolina has not finished higher than 9th in rushing offense in the SEC.
And the only reason I asked you to repeat that, because that would have been the tail end of the Steve Spurrier era, right?
Yeah.
Because I do recall, they had some really prolific rushing attacks there during his tenure. But yeah, that makes sense because he's a generational coach. It may never get better than the Spurrier area.
Man, shame to always think about South Carolina and what happened to Marcus Lattimore.
Right.
Because, man, he was so fun to watch when he was healthy. It's a shame. Like in 2011, they finished 3rd in the SEC in rushing, and so it's been a while. And Lattimore, that was his sophomore season where he ran for over 800 yards. So.
And Cousin Jesse points out they got the rushing game guru back, Sean Elliott.
Yeah.
The former Georgia State head coach, obviously a former South Carolina assistant when they were really good running the ball under Steve Spurrier. So throw that into the mix. Anything, so we kind of, I done fired their coach already, Stephen. You got any bold takes here for Kentucky?
Mike, I had trouble coming up with too many on Kentucky. My biggest one was I do think if there is a surprise opening, don't be surprised if it's Mark Stoops at Kentucky. I think if you look at kind of their stats last year, they were 64th in the nation in scoring defense. I think they finished top 30 this year. 8-9 starters back, depending on where you look. Deion Walker, Maxwell Harrison, 2 guys are All-Americans. I love their linebacker group. I think it's one of the best in the country this season. So I think their defense statistically is much better. Also, I will go with they play 4 road games that are big. It's Ole Miss, Florida, Tennessee, Texas. I'm probably going to get some hate for this. I think they go 0-4 in those road contests.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that's too bold, but they got to get one of those if they're going to have a good season, though. You know what?
That Florida game is probably the one that would, the way that series has trended recently, that's probably the biggest surprise if like going to 0-4. By the way, we should say, I hope, and this isn't a bold prediction, that Deion Walker gets the credit that he deserves. Like, the guy is underrated nationally, and hopefully he gets his credit this season for just being the outstanding defender that he is.
Now, keep in mind, this is not my bold take, Stephen and audience. This is Cousin Danny here. Bold prediction, Shane Beamer continues to be a dork in 2024. And then Cousin John says, that's not very bold. Oh, my God. Yeah, you guys are ruthless. You're ruthless. I can only imagine. Well, hell, I see everything you say about us, but I can only imagine what's being said there. But, hey, a perfect opportunity real quick, Stephen, to remind the audience we're brought to you by MyBookie Online Sportsbook. Head on over to MyBookie.ag today. Sign up for a free account and use that promo code THATSEC, that SEC, over at MyBookie Online Sportsbook. They'll hook you up with all kinds of crazy deposits heading into the college football season. We got week 0 right around the corner. Help the show. Head on over to MyBookie.ag today. Sign up for a free account.
Hey, so, Mike, that New Mexico number over 10, MyBookie.
Yeah, there you go.
Georgia Tech and New Mexico look like pretty interesting plays. watch them both like be wrong. But yeah,
that's why we got you here, Steve,
right.
for the analysis here.
To make you and cousin Shane's picks look better, right? It's like,
right. Well, hey, so this isn't technically a Kentucky bold take. I mean, we basically just fired Mark Stoops. That's our take here. But how about this? Because it does include their quarterback. Is this too bold for you, Stephen? A first-year starting quarterback in this conference will have more passing yards than any other player. Now, I'm not narrowing it down, so this is kind of a cheat. I mean, I'm including about half the damn conference here. But I'm going Nico, Tennessee, Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU, Blake Shapen, I think is a wild card here from Mississippi State, Brock Vandegrift, Kentucky. That's why I bring it up here. Taylon Green at Arkansas, and Lenoris Sellers, South Carolina. So some of those a lot less likely than others. I mean, I'm looking at Nico, I'm looking at Jackson Arnold, Garrett Nussmeier. Those are probably the three that I'd put my money on. But would you buy that a first-year starter at their current school could lead the SEC in passing yards this year?
Yes, I agree with you. Because I'll go even bolder. I think Nico leads the SEC in touchdown passes.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. Maybe if you're in a props or a college fantasy league, that'll help you out a little bit.
So if Nico's leading them, what other bold takes you got for Tennessee?
I don't know if it's probably not really bold, but I do think James Pierce gets double-digit sacks once again. That's kind of, I know it's probably Captain Obvious prediction there for Tennessee. Also, I think, Mike, you and I have talked about this. The stats for Tennessee last year, just 24 points a game in SEC play last year. I think that number is significantly higher. I think it might even be 10 even more points higher than that. I think they're averaging over 30 points a game in the SEC. And they are, I know it's sort of, maybe it's a little bit play on the words here, but I think they're one of the most improved statistical scoring offenses in SEC play this year.
Yeah, and you've stated this many times. Last season was just the lowest production of Josh Heupel's head coaching tenure. So there's a lot to suggest that it will be better just based on the laws of averages here. You know what?
Could argue better quarterback. They're still good at receiver. They've added, of course, the Tulane transfer, Chris Brazel. I like Tennessee's running backs, even though they've got some guys that are banged up. And I think you can maybe even argue this offensive line will be even better than it was last year. Like the experience, like Cooper Mays coming back at center, throw in Lance Hurd at tackle. Every piece of this Tennessee offense, I think, has a chance to be as good in certain skill areas, certainly better at quarterback. And just the track record of Heupel's offenses suggests that they will be, I think, back much higher in the SEC in scoring this year.
And even tight end, which doesn't get mentioned a ton. Tennessee lost some veterans, but Jacob Warren, and then the transfer from Cal Poly, whatever he was a solid player, but neither one of those game breakers. They may have a couple game breakers on the roster at tight end in Ethan Davis and Holden Stays from Notre Dame, and hell, I thought they just added this guy for a body, but Miles Klitzman from Alabama, it sounds like he may even be starting. So they may have a lot more production at the tight end position than people realize.
Do you have a bold prediction on who leads Tennessee in receiving this year?
I don't, but if I had to guess, I would go with Squirrel.
I would too. Yeah.
When all the hype for the other guys, it's Squirrel White that is consistently there. He plays that slot position. That's kind of the go-to position in Josh Heupel's offense. So I think it'll be Squirrel.
I think it's also probably hard to pick Brew McCoy there just because of the injury. I think Chris Brazel is going to be a really nice pickup, but I think Squirrel White's probably your safest option there. And I mean, Dylan Sampson and Cam Selton and some of the other running backs they have. Tennessee's got some really nice skill talent. I mean, Captain Obvious, I know.
Hey, shout out Cousin Buzz, just became a member of the channel. We appreciate you, Cousin Buzz. Welcome to the family. All right, Stephen, who's next on your boldest takes here? I got a couple more, but I don't think I have as many as you. So who you want to hit on next?
How about Auburn? I'll go. Let's start at the receiver position here. Kind of the same thing as Alabama. I think Cam Coleman leads the team in receiving yards. I know
Ooh.
Keandre Lambert-Smith is a big pickup, but I think Cam Coleman, pretty obvious he was brought in. I think if you kind of watch the spring highlights and all that, I think he's ready for that breakout type season. So a little bit bold, but I'll go Cam Coleman to lead the team in receiving yards. The statistical bar is pretty low, but they were 14th in the SEC in passing offense. I think they'll go above 10. I think that Auburn has enough experience at quarterback with Peyton Thorne, second year, plus the receivers improvement. I think they'll be a top 9, 8 passing offense in the SEC. And Mike, this one is especially for you. Auburn will either lose or have a close call in a game in which they have no business losing as a favorite, but they will also pull off one upset this year.
So they'll probably lose to like Arkansas, but beat Georgia.
There you go. Bingo. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I think their fans would probably take that because you're winning a rivalry. But that's the Hugh Freeze. That's the nicest thing I can say about Hugh Freeze. That's the Hugh Freeze experience right there. He's just wildly inconsistent.
And I think that kind of sums up why I was thinking about that prediction, Mike. If you think about it, last season of how inconsistent they were, late in the season, the loss to New Mexico State where they were just dominated.
Right.
Then the Maryland game, but they came a handful of plays away from beating Georgia and Alabama. So go figure.
Hey, shout out Cousin Brian. He's a member of the channel. He says, get Shane a pack of cigs. He's going to need it after Steven loves on Tennessee.
He doesn't need a pack of cigs. He needs to go to the Cracker Barrel. He's cheating on him tonight.
And shout out Chris. He just became a member. Appreciate you, Cousin Chris. Welcome to the family. And I think we had one more, unless I missed it here. But no, okay, that was it. Cousin Shane says he loves your setup there, Steven.
Oh, nice. Hey, shout out to Cousin Shane.
All right, so who's next on your list here, Steven?
How about Florida, Mike?
I got a good one, but I'll let you go first.
Right. Let's start with, how about we work our way from like medium to like the hottest takes here?
Yeah.
I'll go, how about the true freshman, LJ McCray, 5 sacks this season. I think he's a big contributor to that defensive front. Jason Marshall, up and down last year. I think he rebounds. I think he gets the all SEC honors. Eugene Wilson finishes second in the SEC in catches behind Luther Burton. And finally, Billy Napier gets Florida to a bowl and saves his job.
Yeah, hey, I'm totally on board with that one, Steven. And this, again, people are probably tired of my Florida love. I troll them online. It's just so I just troll everybody as well.
You got the recruiting numbers ready to go.
They're top 30 in the country. It's 12th in the SEC. All's right in Gainesville. But seriously, here's my hot take for Florida. Everybody's shitting on Florida. Everybody's down on Florida. I've said it before. I'm holding firm to this, Stephen. I think, and I hate to give away picks here, but I guess I'm just going to do it. They are going to beat the hell out of Miami in the opener. I'll just let everybody know that now. That's going to be my pick and maybe my lock of the week. That not only are they beating Miami, Stephen, they are going to start the season 6-1, the Florida Gators. So I think they're going to have a bowl trip locked up, just like now. You didn't say this early, but I think they get it locked up by November. And of course, that's because they get a bye week there. So, but before Georgia, they will have a bowl game secured. Maybe even, 7-0 is probably is going a step too far, but that's not unrealistic. Give me Florida starting the season 6-1. Would you buy that?
I would buy that. I think they're going to have to get it done early in the year, just because of how difficult their schedule is. But also, I do think, I know their November stretch is tough. I think Florida State's going to be good this year. I think. Yeah. We'll have to see. Only 8 returning starters. We may find out Saturday that they're maybe not as good as we thought. But, Florida plays LSU after they play Alabama. They play Ole Miss a week before, Ole Miss has to play Mississippi State. And that's also, they play Georgia before they have the off week to play Florida, Ole Miss, that is. So, the timing of those November games, I know they're difficult. they got to get it done early, I think, because of the way the schedule difficulty is. But I also think they could pick off one of those games in November if they needed to.
Right now, I said 6-1. They may finish 6-6.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
but again, that's better than what they're projecting you to do. So, quite frankly, I would take that if I'm a Florida fan.
I would too. I think 6-6, and I think with sort of what the I know you'll the recruiting numbers like you said, but if Lagway could step in next year,
Right.
and sort of like the foundation that they have, I think that would be a good step forward against a very difficult schedule for the Gators.
You got anything for Georgia, Stephen? I got a good one for the Dogs, but I'm curious to know what you got.
I have a couple, Mike. I'll start out. I'll go with the least bold to the most bold. How about Ellis Robinson and KJ Bolden will both be starters at some point this season? So basically, two true freshmen in the secondary, teaming up with Malachi Starks. I think this will still be one of the best secondaries in the country, but just shows the upside, the talent this group has. I will go with Michael Williams to get double-digit sacks and All-America honors. He's kind of the key piece to that front, creating more havoc this year. And I'll tandem these two. Georgia loses a regular season game for the first time since 2020, not counting the SEC championships, but they win the national championship.
Ooh. I think their fans would make that trade, Stephen.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Now, here's my one for Georgia. I kind of already gave it away to you off air, but I didn't realize this. And I asked Stephen, I said, when's the last time Georgia had a 1,000-yard receiver? And it took him about 6 seconds, and he said, well, it was probably Terrence Edwards, right? And I'm sitting here like looking year by year by year, and it took me 10 minutes. But yes, he was exactly right. Terrence Edwards, 2002 this was. So over 20 years ago here, he had 1,004 yards. So just over 1,000 yards. And that's my bold take. Georgia finally snaps that. I don't know who it's going to be. It'll probably be Dominic Lovett or Dylan Bell. But give me a Georgia receiver to have over 1,000 yards. And again, I'm saying regular season. I guess they count bowl stats now, but I guess you could go that way because they may play 16, 17 type games. But I'm trying to just say regular season. And I think that has more to do with Carson Beck and their ability to toss it all around the yard. But I think Georgia finally has a 1,000-yard receiver. What's your thoughts on that?
I think so too. It's one of those. I was kind of going back and forth because I look at that receiving core and I see all the depth and I see the talent and I like a lot of the pieces. It's sort of a very good collection. I don't know necessarily who that number one guy is, but you also just look at it's almost like by the math here. Like Carson Beck averaged just over 280 passing yards a game last year, and Jaden Daniels was first over 300. I mean, almost 4,000 passing yards last season, and you could argue the schedule's more difficult this year, where he might actually have to throw more. So I would probably go with somebody get into 1,000. Yeah,
right. But it's so wild that it's been that
wild.
long since they've had a 1,000-yard receiver with all the talent they've had through there.
It really is, man. I kind of forgot that. Yeah, it was Terrence Edwards. And then you start looking at the history of George Pickens, of course. He might have got to 1,000 had he stayed healthy in his Georgia career, but they've had some talent.
Green, another one.
Green, yeah.
Hey, how about this comment from cousin Wesley here? Appreciate you with the donation. Nice background, Stephen. Florida should be worried with all this hype Mike's giving up. Ain't that the truth? I mean, that's the ultimate kiss of death right there. Sorry, Florida fans. I'm not trying to curse you, even though I probably just did.
I think there should be some optimism for Florida. I think maybe the national collective is kind of down on the Gators this year, but sometimes it's better to be the hunter than the hunted, right? And
no doubt,
in Florida, the expectations are kind of low too. I mean, most people think they're going to be 5-7 or 4-8. We think they can make it to a bowl game.
All right. How about another team, Stephen? Let's see. You got anything for them LSU Tigers?
I do. I've got a very, very mild take to start off. LSU will win a season opener for the first time under Brian Kelly. They'll beat USC on September 1st out in Vegas. So it'd be nice for LSU to get that one. They really and truly need to beat USC, considering where USC is. I think Garrett Nussmeier could play his way into first round consideration. Every year there is a quarterback that is maybe not first or second team All-America preseason. Carson Beck is going to get that. Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. I think Garrett Nussmeier could be that type of quarterback. Now, you read through some of the tea leaves this preseason at LSU. They're doing some different things with the offensive line, some of the different schemes, trying to kind of spark the running game. I still think this offense will lean on Nussmeier's passing. So I think he will finish top 5 in the SEC in passing yards and also play his way into first round consideration.
Yeah, I like that one, Steven. Son of a coach who's got NFL background. Yeah, Nussmeier, certainly. I think him, Connor Wigman, well, I would also throw into that conversation as well. Are there any other quarterbacks that I don't want to say off the radar, because all these guys now in the SEC, you play in the SEC, you're getting some degree of hype. But would those be the top two? Would there be another one perhaps that fits that mold, do you think?
I think those are the top two. I am curious. Jackson Dart, I know he's obviously way more known nationally, but I think given the fact that Quinshot Judkins is no longer there at Ole Miss, could you see like a little bit of a shift to Ole Miss with the receivers and Caden Prescorn? So like, what does Jackson Dart do to improve his stock? But to me, it's Wigman, Nussmeier are the two like that could go from like off the NFL radar to high NFL pick next year.
Right. How about Mississippi State, Stephen? I got a good one here. I kind of, I already said South Carolina, I think, could be the most improved defense. Give me Mississippi State as the most improved offense in the SEC. Now, that's a low bar because they were so awful. But you're bringing in Jeff Levy, you're bringing in excitement. Sounds like they really like the receivers they have to work with. They're very high on Blake Shapen, the transfer quarterback. How confident are you that Mississippi State could be the most improved offense in the SEC?
Mike, I am confident in that because my bold prediction is this is a top 5 passing offense in Mississippi State school history.
Wow.
I know it's bold. There's a lot of new pieces, offensive line, but let me say this delicately. I think they're going to be behind in a lot of games this year, especially in the SEC. I think Blake Shapen will need to throw it a lot. Track record too under Jeff Levy. I think they're going to put up monster offensive numbers. Now, they may not score a lot, but between the 20s, they're probably going to be able to move it. And also, give me Kelly Akari to lead the SEC in catches of 40-plus yards.
He's a big, explosive weapon waiting to happen, you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, last year at UTEP and even the year before, catching big pass plays, good speed on the outside. I think about how this offense under Jeff Levy could really work. They need to stretch the field. I think he can give it to him right away. So, I think maybe a couple long touchdowns this year can get into that top of the SEC. There's a lot of good receivers. It could be Isaiah Bond. It could be Deion Burks. But let's take a flyer on Kelly Akari and catching some passes from Blake Shapen.
How about any bold takes for Missouri? Stephen, I got a good one here, but I'm kind of curious to hear if you got one.
I will go with Luther Burden being a Heisman finalist.
Ooh.
I don't think he will win it because I think there's too many probably quarterbacks in such a quarterback-driven award. But I think he'll make it to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. I think Missouri wins double-digit games for the second year in a row. I've seen a lot of predictions recently seem to be down on Missouri. I'm not buying it. I'm going to take them to win double digits. And I will take Missouri will miss Cody Schrader, but Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel will basically replace that production this year. So the rushing game won't miss a beat, but they'll miss Cody Schrader, like the player, the person, right, the leadership, if that makes sense.
Well, that's interesting, Stephen, because we didn't compare notes, but I basically have something very similar for Missouri. I think the Tigers will rush for more yards this season than they did last season. And again, it's more of a committee approach. I'm not saying these guys are better than Cody Schrader, but as good as Cody Schrader was, and he was All-American, they were 49th in the country in rushing yards last season. It was basically Cody Schrader, some Brady Cook, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I think they could be a more productive team on the ground. And I think a lot of that will have to do with the weapons and Brady Cook excelling as a passer year 2 under Kirby Moore, offensive coordinator. I think they're going to be even more effective on the ground. Would you buy that?
Yes, I would. I think Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel is going to be just fine at running back. Plus, the offensive line for Missouri is still going to be a strength. And also, too, I think there's a chance that this might be hard to put into words, but it almost seems like Brady Cook has a much better, like, second year under Kirby Moore is a much better grasp of the offense. I could see this passing game taking a step forward, which makes things a little bit easier on the ground, too. So, all around, I'm very high in the potential for this Missouri offense this year, and it starts with just those 2 transfers stepping in at running back, too.
Right. All right. What would be your next bold take there, Steven?
We're going to go to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's all right. So for the Sooners, I like the Sooners to have a top 5 defense in the SEC this year. I think they continue that recent trend of improvement. Love the safety combo, Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, the recruiting, the development up front along the defensive front, and also Danny Stutzman back at linebacker. Got a ways to go, but I think this defense is starting to round into a kind of a Brent Venables group. So give me a top 5 defense for Oklahoma. Give me Deion Burks to be a top 3 receiver in the SEC in terms of catches of 40 plus. So I picked Kelly Akari to lead it. I think Deion Burks could be second. I think Jackson Arnold will have some ups and downs, but by November, we will be talking about him as a potential Heisman leader in 2025.
Oh, gotcha.
Because come October, we're still going to be talking about the offensive line being a question mark for Oklahoma.
Right.
So,
yeah. Oh, no. So you just threw a lot at us there.
Yeah.
But no, I love the Deion Burks talk. Jackson Arnold. That's pretty fascinating to see that breakdown. But I agree 100%. Everything on the defensive side of the football, Brent Venables. I mean, he's proven he can do it. And I think based on the early returns, it's only been 2 years now, that there's clear evidence that he's doing it again in Norman, Oklahoma. And who knows? I mean, it may be a step too far to say they could be the best defense in the SEC. I think that's too bold of a take, but I don't think that is like wildly unrealistic either, if that makes sense.
Trying to think of who I would for sure put above them. Like definitely Georgia.
Right.
Texas would be in that discussion too.
But then again, I guess it's all about how you want to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're talking statistics, again, Clemson, I don't think they're very good on offense, but let's just say they're better. We think Alabama's going to be really good on offense. Texas certainly should be. Ole Miss should be. Tennessee should be. Florida, I think that's going to be the strength of their team. Mississippi State, it should be the strength of their team. There is a case to be made that Georgia will not statistically be the best defense just because of the offenses they're facing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously Oklahoma's schedule is difficult.
You can make the same case for a lot for their teams too.
Yeah, I mean, playing Nico, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart, Brady Cook, Jalen Milroe, Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, top 5 in the SEC. If they finish top 5 in the SEC with that schedule, man, that defense would be pretty good. I guess I didn't write this bold prediction down, Mike, but I do think Oklahoma can get one of Tennessee, Missouri, or Alabama this year. I think that the home games and the rivalry game with Missouri, I know of course the over-under 7.5, but I feel like they're going to go over that, and it's going to be because of an upset somewhere.
Yeah, no, I firmly believe that as well, Stephen. Hey, real quick, shout out to Slick. Love that name. He just became a member of the channel. Welcome to the family, cuz. We appreciate you. All right, Stephen, so who you got next on your bold takes here?
I got one for Ole Miss. I don't think I mentioned this one earlier. So Quinshot Judkins has rushed for over 1,000 yards each of the last 2 years. I don't think Ole Miss has a top 5 rusher, a 1,000 yard rusher this season. but I think they still have a top 5 rushing attack. I think that's just Ulysses Bentley, Henry Parrish, Jackson Dart, you name it, whichever the sort of the collective makes that offense go. So no 1,000-yard rusher, but still a very good rushing attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're just going to spread the wealth a little bit more,
Yeah,
you think?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
No, I would certainly buy that. Now, I think Bentley, I don't know what it is you got.
They're driving the Bentley this year.
But I mean, I think he could be the breakout star. So I would kind of disagree with you, but there's logic in what you're saying. And we know Lane Kiffin's a smart guy. He's probably not going to have like some workhorse, given all the additions they added. I'm sure he sold it as, we'll get you 100 carries, we'll get you 100, we'll get you 100, for the sole purpose of they want to make a run in the playoff, and they're going to need fresh running backs to do that.
Isn't it I guess an interesting storyline to the season is going to be like the NBA, like load management. Like, how do you manage some of these things? Like, if you're Ole Miss and maybe you save Ulysses Bentley for later in the season, like, you need depth more than ever. So, I don't think it's it's not a knock on like Ulysses Bentley or anybody else if you don't get to 1,000. Like, that is something that's a selling point. You're going to need 2 or 3 running backs to make it through the season. If you're Ole Miss and you want to make a run at the playoff, you'll need to sort of spread the wealth and keep your core healthy for that December stretch run.
Right. And any player that's worth anything, Stephen, you tell them you want 1,000 yards or you want to win 11 games. They're all going to take 11 games.
Yeah.
If they're a player worth having on your roster, I think.
I totally agree.
All right. Who's next, Stephen? We've been bouncing around so much. I don't even know who's left on your list here.
I think we're down to Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt, Mike. So let's start with Texas. To get ready for Anthony Hill and Malik Muhammad to be postseason All-Americans. So, great freshman seasons, sophomore breakout campaigns coming up. I think Malik Muhammad's quickly going to become one of the better corners in the SEC. Anthony Hill, same thing at linebackers. So give me those two to be All-America contenders at the end of 2024. Jaden Blue, this is kind of easy now. So Texas has had a 1,000-yard rusher for 3 straight years. I think he makes it 4. After the unfortunate injury to C.J. Baxter, I think Jaden Blue is going to have a monster year as the number 1 running back. And the boldest of them all, Arch Manning starts a game for Texas this year. Quinn Ewers, keep in mind, has missed games the last 2 years. So I think Arch Manning starts once this season somewhere.
How about this, Stephen? I apologize. I should have been more prepared, but this just kind of came into my memory here. But because I was listening to a podcast the other day, and again, I wish I could remember who. That's all I do is listen to these podcasts and things of that nature. But there was a really interesting point made, Stephen. So Texas, I don't know if you're aware of this, last season, red zone touchdown percentage, that's a critical stat that obviously the better you do, the more efficient your offense. Do you have any idea where Texas ranked last year, red zone touchdown percentage?
They were near the bottom of the Big 12, right?
They were 120th in the country.
Yeah.
So certainly, I would imagine they were very far down that list. But it was I'm looking at but 2021. I guess that would have been Sark's first. Was that his first year?
Believe that. Yeah.
They were number 4 in the country. So, I mean, he did a remarkable job right out the gate. And basically the point I'm bringing that up, he was asked about it, and his rationale was, well, we've had some cheat codes at running back, essentially. And when we're highly effective down there, it's because we can utilize these running backs in a number of ways, and they've sent multiple running backs to the NFL. Does that concern you that with these running back injuries, that could be a dangerous trend? Because, I mean, as Sark himself has said, without these cheat code at running backs, it's significantly harder to score in the red zone. What any concern that Texas could be have troubles scoring in the red zone, touchdowns that is, in specifically in conference play?
It's a good question, Mike, because, if you go back to last year, and I think one thing that was kind of a little strange about Texas last year was some of these games that they played and how close they were. You think back, they were a couple plays away from losing to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they had an overtime game against Kansas State. Quinn Ewers didn't play in that game, and they beat TCU by 3. So they had some kind of close calls there. So you could easily see how things on the margin in a tougher conference slate could really matter here if you're Texas. So I think I am, Mike. I'm a little bit concerned about it, but I think Jaden Blue is going to be a star for this team, and I think you kind of showed that last year. I think what would worry me is you've already lost 2 running backs now. You've already lost your number one. You already lost another guy there. If you keep losing pieces, there's only so many guys you can move around. I know they mentioned maybe they might find somebody in the portal at this rate to start for the season. I mean, it's a little perilous there. So, to the same thing we talked about with Ole Miss, if you're Texas, you got to have some depth to make it to later in the year. And you don't want Jaden Blue or someone else like that to get hurt, which only would make that red zone number an even bigger concern. So, yeah, I would be worried about that if you continue to lose running backs for sure.
Right. And, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but I just thought that was pretty fascinating of
Yes.
start to comment on that. All right, Stephen, how about A&M? What's a bold take you got for the Aggies?
Kind of the same thing with Garrett Nussmeier. I think Connor Wigman delivers a breakout year, works his way into that first round, stock for the NFL draft, and maybe becomes kind of that guy whose stock steadily rises through the year. Maybe he has a decision to make come December or January. I like Texas A&M to lead the SEC in sacks once again. Nick Scorton transferring in from Purdue gives this defensive front another standout. So give me Connor Wigman, breakout year, first round stock, Texas A&M to lead the SEC in sacks, and I will take Texas A&M. They get 4 massive home games at home this year. Mm-hmm. Missouri, Notre Dame, Texas, and LSU. I think they at least split those 4, and they stay in the playoff race until November and win at least 9 games in Mike Elko's first year.
Oh, baby. Yeah, that's a bold one, Stephen. Now, I kind of asked you a tough question on Texas, so let me ask you about it about A&M too, because just talking to people that know that program, one concern though is where they're going to manufacture explosive plays on offense, and they missed on at least one receiver, the guy that's at Auburn now. What's his name? Keandre
Lambert-Smith.
Yeah, they tried to get him. Reuben Owens, they were looking to be that guy, and obviously, unfortunately, lost for most, if not all, the season. Any concern? Because I know they still got weapons. I'm not saying they're devoid of talent or anything. Certainly not. But do you think A&M will have those type of weapons, or will Colin Klein, which he's done significantly well with significantly less talent, so I'm not questioning him, but obviously it's much tougher in the SEC. Will that be a concern, or is that not a concern at all for you?
It is. I mean, A&M was last in the SEC in plays of 40-plus yards last year. So it was a concern last year. It's still, I think, a concern this year. Keep in mind, I think Jabari Barber, the Troy transfer at receiver, he's been banged up. It looks like he's going to be good to go. I know there's some buzz about Terry Bussey, too. The freshman, maybe whatever side of the ball he ends up on, being a weapon there. So I think Petrino was great last year with kind of working under the circumstances of Jimbo, sort of limiting probably what he could do. But I think Colin Klein sort of having that flexibility of being the guy, it's his offense. And also I would expect that the offensive line is just better this year too. So I think there's enough there, if that makes sense, that they may not be first or second or fifth in the SEC in plays of 40 plus, but I think there's enough there to generate some big plays this year.
And Cousin Shane continues to doubt the Aggies. Stephen, he's got A&M winning 7 games. Playoff race deep into November. All right, the last team, Stephen, right? Vanderbilt. Bold take for the Commodores?
Mike, I think Vanderbilt is more competitive this year, but I think they go 0-8 again in SEC play. I think it's just going to be hard. The law of averages in college football would tell you that they probably will find a win in SEC play somewhere. The gap, though, that they had last season was just so significant that I think it'll take them another year to sort of get up to SEC level. So I'm going to go 0-8 in SEC play, but they're more competitive. 2 more for you on Vanderbilt. The first one is I think Cedric Alexander doubles his rushing yards from last season. He had 371. Keep in mind, New Mexico State ran the ball over 500 times last year. I think this offense will have to kind of work through Alexander and Pavia. Vanderbilt has allowed 35 points a game for 4 consecutive years. I think they give up just under 30. There's improvement, but still a lot of work to do for Clark Lee on the defensive side of the ball this year, which would be, if they give up under 30 points a game, considering that schedule, that would be a nice step forward.
Right. Well, on the bright side, Stephen, their stadium is looking good, and it's gonna look great with all these opposing fans that are
That's true.
Fall. All right. So any I guess that's it for the bold takes. Any bold takes to close us out here, Stephen?
I was going to say there's at least 2 coaching changes at the end of the season.
I think that's a safe assumption, especially now that we got 16 teams in this conference.
Yeah, I think 3 wouldn't be shocking. I think 2 for sure. I think set the over under on playoff teams at about 4.5, and I'd probably say it's 4 is probably safest, given the way that the schedule and all that's going to bounce across the country. But I would say about 4.5 is probably my over under on SEC playoff teams.
Hey, shout out to Slick here. Just gave us 25. My little buzzer's not working here. There we go. Appreciate you, cuz. He says, what did y'all say about Bama? And we need that Bama logo. I'll add the Bama one as soon as we get off here too, Slick. But I said, he ain't gonna like it, but I said Ole Miss gonna have better defense than Alabama. And Steven says Milroe's gonna be in Heisman contention. They're gonna have 2 breakout running backs. Ryan Williams gonna lead the team in receiving. And anything else for Bama?
I think Alabama will lose to either Tennessee or Oklahoma, but they will make the playoff in Kalen DeBoer's first year.
So some good, some bad.
Yeah.
Please don't take your $25 away. No, all right. So, Stephen, really, really do appreciate another SEC After Dark going so long with us here. And again, in case anybody's new or signed up, what a tremendous debut. Let's see. I hope people can still hear me. Half the time they can't see me. They can't hear me. We lost Steven, but that's just par for the course for this show. You know what?
That's why we call it SEC After Dark, right? Strange things happened. We've had a cursed show that last week that one of us was like very ill and Mike hurt his back and we had injured 2 running backs for the season. So that's why it's SEC After Dark. Mike, this is the last episode of SEC After Dark until like December or January, I guess, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. And we might as well mention it while we're here, Steven. So Steven has, now that he's got a fancy new look and everything, now that he's ready for the season is obviously here. We got these week 0 games this weekend, but next weekend, or excuse me, next week, the plan is to have Steven on twice a week, and that doesn't mean we're losing Cousin Shane. Shane's still going to do all the episodes he does. So we're going to do an added bonus show each week with Steven here, where Steven's going to make his predictions for each and every SEC games. So that's just another step that we're trying to make this show even better and better this season. But I'm looking forward to that, Stephen.
Oh, me too, Mike. I'm excited about the season getting here. We've talked all off season about the anticipation of the 12-team playoff, the 16-team SEC, Oklahoma and Texas, the rivalries coming back together with Texas and Texas A&M, Arkansas and Oklahoma and Missouri, and all these teams getting back together in the same conference. It's going to be awesome. And just the quarterbacks in the league, the coaching storylines with Nick Saban no longer there. Man, I can't wait for next week, because once it starts, Mike, you know how it is. It's 100 miles an hour until the end of the season. It's longer this year, but man, it's going to be a fun ride, and I'm looking forward to it twice a week. I look forward to hanging out with you and all the cousins.
Absolutely. Before you go, Stephen, as always, can you tell the people how can they follow you? How can they find your work?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Athlon Steven, and you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Stephen L. CFB. All my weekly writings over at Athlon Sports as well.
All right, Stephen, again, I appreciate you so much, all the hard work you're doing, all the upgrades you're making behind the scenes. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you tomorrow with Cousin Shane. We'll catch you on the next one.